Good afternoon. I am here today to share something that I was looking at that I felt was very instructive to the art of astrology. I was looking at clients' charts and talking to them, and it occurred to me very viscerally from the observation that if you um, find Mars and the Sun in the same house, um, ruled by the same sign, then the native is going to have a tremendous uh, drive within the context of astrology. And that drive will come at a cost to them if Mars is out of sect. So this is really this is kind of a cool thing to observe because both it's teaching and illuminating of how sect affects the malefics and how they operate, but also how Mars, whether it's out of sect or in sect, still has this function of creating a drive that a person has to obey, a person has to go through, and has to experience. So the first chart that illustrates this here is David Bowie's chart. And here we find Mars and the Sun in Capricorn in the 12th house. Now, everybody probably knows who David Bowie is, an extremely successful musician. So then his success, though, did come at a cost, and that cost is signified by Mars. Mars in the 12th house here is ruling his 10th house and his third house. Now, here the sacrifice to Mars happened to be David Bowie's brother, the out of sect Mars that gave him the drive, also cost him his brother. His brother had trouble with schizophrenia throughout his life, died early in David Bowie's life, and as a heavily influenced David Bowie. His success. Now you can notice that Mars is also in the 12th house, which is the house of mental illness per se. So then that Mars in the 12th house, the house being a mental illness, ruling the third brothers, is the cost that David Bowie is going to pay for his success. And from that, then his success, represented by Jupiter in Scorpio, ruled by Mars, in the 10th house, making him one of probably the most premier and famous musicians of the last century. But that's not the only chart. It takes a number of charts to prove something. So I'm gonna put up another one here for you to see. This is Robin Williams, who is obviously a comedian, extremely famous comedian, and he has Mars and Sun in the same sign in the ninth house. Now, just to note, David Bowie's Mars and Sun is combust. His Mars is combust the Sun. It is still effective in terms of giving him drive. So this shows that combustion doesn't necessarily take away a planet's power. Uh, it still has power if it's combust. Now, that power might not display itself as neatly as one wants, but it's still there. Now, here we have Mars not combust, but it is in Cancer, which is it's kind of a detriment for it. Um, so then Mars is in Cancer and it is in the same sign of the Sun. Robin Williams, again, extremely successful and extremely driven man. So that Mars is creating this drive, being in the same sign as the Sun, but it comes at a cost. For Robin Williams, that cost is the sixth house, which is that he then has this very kind of like difficult health situation at the end of his life, and it causes him to take his own life, causes him to commit suicide. So we can see then like this Mars, this drive that brought him success came at a cost, and that cost was his own body. Then we have another chart here just to illustrate this, and this is Henry Ford. Industrialist, created Ford Motors. Uh, People might have heard of Ford motor cars. Um, Anyways, here we have the Sun and Mars in the same sign again. Again, this is a daytime chart, so they're out of sect, just like the previous ones. And what you find here then is you have Mars is ruling the third house of siblings and the eighth house of death. Here's what the cost was for Henry Ford. He passed on his corporation, his Ford, to his son and wanted to give it to him. But then during World War II, his son died of cancer. So that's eighth house, that eighth house experience. He loses his son, was extremely bereaved by his son's death, had to take over the business again. And all of the board of trustees thought he was a little bit crazy at that point in time. Again, look at this. This is in the 12th house, creating that eccentric craziness. But he held the business until he died. And then his grandson took over the business. So, anyways, um, this tremendous drive that Ford brought to the table comes at a cost. He loses his son. Um, so we can see that's the third example. Uh, Fourth example of this, where you'll see the tremendous drive coming at a cost. So Mars is in Virgo with the sun on the midheaven. This is Mother Teresa. You may have heard of her. She's a great saint. And I think she handled the costs more consciously than any of our previous examples. Mars here is ruling the 12th house, um, and ruling the fifth house. Now, what she did is she became a nun. In becoming a nun, then she cloistered herself, which is definitely a 12th house affair, and didn't have children like most women of her time and age did. So then she sacrificed that Mars by cloistering herself and by not having children, and then achieved tremendous fame and success and had a continuous like energetic drive. So that's four examples of how an out of sect Mars requires sacrifice in order to fulfill its potential and purpose. And I bring this up because I think if you're reading charts or if you're studying your own chart and you come across this, then you should know when you communicate to the person who you're reading for, or you communicate to yourself, that this Mars is going to require this sacrifice being out of sect. So then you want to talk to your client, or you want to talk to the person you're working with. What are they going to give to that Mars? Because if they give it consciously, then it's much less likely to do what it did in the three previous example, which is take unconsciously from a person's area of life. At least this is what I believe. I believe you have some negotiation with how that planet operates. While I was showing this to some people on my Twitter feed at Dorje Padma, Heart Astrology, one woman asked, or one man, I don't know because their PFP doesn't tell me, they asked, what happens if the Mars is insect in a nighttime chart? So there's two sects, there's daytime and nighttime, and you probably already know that Saturn and Jupiter are day sect planets. They behave better during the day, and Venus and Mars are night sect planets. They behave better at night. So I didn't know because every chart example I was finding was a daytime chart. I did find a chart after that, which was a nighttime chart just to see how that would work. And how that worked here is really well for the native. An insect Mars works really well for the native. It still gives them this tremendous drive. This is Cameron Diaz, famous, beautiful, stunning, gorgeous actress, um, born August 30th, 1972, Virgo. So highly successful in her career. And this Mars is ruling the 10th house and ruling the fifth house. And as far as I know, she has not had to give up anything to get this success. At least I couldn't find anything on her Wikipedia biography saying she had to give up something for her success. She's currently running a wine brand. She's back in acting, so her profession's going good, and she's enjoying leisure, passion, and love of her life. So this insect Mars is not calling for the sacrifices that the out of sect Mars did. Anyways, that's covering the topic of Mars in sect and out of sect with the sun, creating a strong personal drive. I think another thing to notice here is that that drive exists whether Mars is combust, or whether Mars is or whether Mars is not combust. Either way, you're going to get that drive as long as they're in the same sign. So when you're looking through charts, you should be able to see that and observe it. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this kind of brief topic introduction on sect through Mars, and then the drive that Mars and the Sun being in the same sign gives a native. Have a good day, and I'm sorry I haven't been posting much. I look forward to posting more as we go on in time. Thank you.